but it can't be helped. 1,702. And I just need to do a morning live stream because it gets really busy. So we are at 1,702 days since Richard was in the line of duty, and that has a lot of implications. In the line of duty, he was found um, not alive, not alive. And that is not because of his own hand. That is not because of anything wrong that he did. This is full honors, and it means that he lost his life in a very violent way on Fort Bliss, and it was because he was reporting cartel tied criminal trafficking on Fort Bliss, clearly connected to his unit and the prime suspect in his case. And, we have names, but the prime suspect is his platoon leader, Dallas Hart. Um, his mother, Leilani Hart, was exposed and identified by Judge Roger Rodriguez in the interference of Richard's disappearance and murder. And they were tampering with records, and she had access because CID family member was, right there at Fort Bliss in that office. And Leilani Hart was bragging that she controlled the CID. And the El Paso Police Department can absolutely corroborate that. And so it is, very interesting that Bob Moore, I don't even want to call him a reporter or a journalist or whatever, because that's not what he is. He's more of an attack dog. And, they're doing it with a 501c3, which is, just part of all of their fraud, right? They take advantage of the system because they have no ethics, because they have no moral no moral basis, foundation. Absolutely, they have none, and this is why I guess he's hired to do what he does, and he absolutely needs to be held accountable for that. And until that we get accountability with these media, um, that are really up to no good, um, we're going to continue to have these fake stories, these fake news stories, and have a lot of fraud. A lot of people putting their hands in your pocket, our pockets, everyone's pockets, a lot of fraud to pay for this mess, because this media has to be paid for. Nobody wants to pay for it. So they have to use taxpayer funded money, right? Um, we rather, get our media from online, right? From online, um, and choose and have this huge variety of opinions. We don't want the mockingbird opinion, right? Where everybody's saying the same thing. And that's why you have to come here. You have to come here um, to our live stream, because we are absolutely investigating, because it's really, Richard's case is so big. It's so big. And it's the biggest scandal in U.S. Army history. It really is. It's the biggest scandal in U.S. Army history. And it's absolutely tied to the attacks on President Trump. It's absolutely tied to El Mayo, the cartel, um, uh, El Chapo's son, the Sinaloa cartel, um, the Santa Teresa International Jetport. It's absolutely tied to the criminal trafficking, the emergency intake center on Fort Bliss. Um, that was trafficking 10,000 children at a time over the years. Hundreds of thousands of children were trafficked, and now most of them are presumed dead. Um, Richard's case is absolutely tied to and you can believe me or not, but it's absolutely tied to the assassination attempts on President Trump. It is absolutely tied to the Walmart mass shooting. So it's absolutely tied to this violation of the gag order that Bob Moore of El Paso Matters just violated. Just violated because they had some quote unquote a family member of a victim leak uh, leak protected information to him that he in turn, even though he absolutely knows, because he was, you know, he absolutely knows about that gag order. Let me just tell you, he absolutely knows. It's his business to know. And he even said it in his own publication that he was trying to talk to other family members and they wouldn't talk to him because of the gag order. And also James Montoya said he couldn't comment on it because of the gag order. And so Bob Moore absolutely knew there was a gag order, but he has no ethics. He doesn't care about laws. He absolutely has a history of breaking laws. And in our son's case, he has no problem with interfering in our son's case and publishing federally protected information in our son's case, in our son's murder case. And so the interference, the obstruction of justice, because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and they have to have the hearts, the minds, and the opinions of the people to continue their criminal trafficking. If they divert your attention, if they can make you see it their way, criminal way, turn you into a criminal, if they can, uh, compromise you in any way at all and compromise your thoughts in any way at all. They're very good at it. And, you have to test yourself all the time to make sure that you haven't fallen into the trap. And they really do asymmetric warfare tactics on you, psychological asymmetric warfare on your mind. And this is a battle of the mind of the people. And that's why you see that it's always a battle for the narrative, always a battle for the narrative. And you see that right now in Washington, D.C., and the hearings, they kept bringing up this whole signal scandal. The signal scandal is a nothing burger, really. It really, looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. Um, y- you know, the first thing my husband said was, I don't want to say exactly what he said, but he said, what a lousy American this journalist was. I mean, here we are, so successful in uh, this airstrike, or this Houthi controlling the trying to end the war there and all that. And anyway, what they were talking about with these Houthis, and you know, and this guy from the Atlantic doesn't chime in and let them know and say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm here. Watch out. Something's gone wrong, and signal is not working. It's not securing the site or whatever." No, he has to turn into a real jerk. He has to turn into an enemy. He has to turn into a domestic enemy. That's what he turned into, a domestic enemy. The Atlantic has a reporter that is a domestic enemy. And that is what Bob Moore is. Bob Moore is a domestic enemy because Richard was absolutely whistleblowing on cartel tied criminal activities on Fort Bliss. And Bob Moore has done everything he can to cover that up, to manipulate the narrative so that the attention is not given to the case so that you can't get accountability. Because it is really a mistake to think that you can get accountability without anyone paying attention. In this day and age, everyone has to call for the accountability. And that's why they spend so much money on these elections and so much money on media and want to control it so much with the mockingbird of media and just repeat, 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 like they're doing a hypnosis on you, getting your eyeballs to swirl around so that they can make you do what they want you to do. And it's it really is very clear that the battle is for the narrative. And in Richard's case, if you're that's why they conducted unjustly a smear campaign on Richard, the distinguished honor graduate for both basic training and advanced individual training. But they never mentioned that. They never mentioned that. They just made up a lot of lies, like, like Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia can do, like Leilani Hart can do. They make up a lot of lies. And that's why Bob Moore aligned with these two um, un, unreliable sources. They would call them unreliable sources, a fraudster and someone that does the worst type of crimes to children. She absolutely confessed to the worst type of crimes against children. She has a criminal history. I'm talking about Leilani Hart. She absolutely needs to be arrested ASAP. And yeah, it's and then of course the fraudster Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia messing with the apostille, messing with the apostille of a victim's birth certificate. Okay, messing with the apostille. The apostille is a international stamp um, of authenticity, and yeah, she messed with that and more and more. And what was her family doing with Richard's credit cards after Richard had died, right? After he had um, been targeted and his life was taken from him. What was her family doing with Richard's credit cards, possessions? Um, that's a really good question. And to target us, right? And what was her family doing? Targeting us, right? We're just wanting to uh, find our son, find out what happened to our son, and then get justice for our son. She should be willing to help. And what is she doing with this? Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But Bob Moore is using these quote unquote unreliable sources, these criminals, these fraudsters, these absolutely the bottom of the barrel type of people, and that have no love, no love, no love for the country. Matter of fact, Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia was calling for a boycott against the United States. Um, but she but she'll mess with an apostille so that she can get benefits from the United States. It really is really schizophrenic. It really is schizophrenic. Um, and her son, yeah, they want all the benefits of the country without having to be responsible and being patriotic to the country. Um, it's just really doesn't make sense. She called for a boycott, yeah, meaning she wanted our economy to be hurt. That's what she was doing. She was calling for Americans to be hurt because when our economy is hurt, then Americans are hurt, right? And so that's what she was doing. It's to call for a boycott of a country is really a very, very serious issue. And she was doing that. And Bob Moore just aligns with her, right? Really aligns with her and aligns with Leilani Hart. And so this whole breach or violation, hold on, let me get some tea here. It's so late. We're out. It's been a long day. 1 o'clock. Long day. We have no time to sleep. This is going so fast. Did you see that post? That post? I mean, it is just through the roof, and we're getting a lot of information. so, um, so this whole uh, violation of a gag order, we spent a good part of the day submitting a complaint about Bob Moore and what he has done because he did that in our son's case, messing with, committing a crime so that they can manipulate and everything. In this case, because of the Patrick Crucius um, not seeking the death penalty, it's very, very clear that he's messing with the plea deal, right? And you just always have to be analyzing what they're up to. And, they need to just shut down this state Patrick Crucius case because it's hurting. It's hurting. It's hurting the people. And, it won't end there. Okay. And look at Montoya. Montoya comes out and says talking to everybody. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. No, because there's so much fraud and the evidence is so um, quite the opposite of the narrative. The opposite of the narrative. The evidence is quite the opposite of the narrative that they have fed the public and that they are still feeding the public. And I was reading through these articles and what they were saying and what they were it was such lies. It was such lies, and they have the truth, and they have Mr. 2028, right? James Montoya is Mr. 2028 with his 2028 stamp. They're just so full of fraud and lies and tampering, and it's so clear. And you read their narrative that they feel like they're still feeding us to control the whole case and their criminality. But look, they never mention the Mayellas. They never mention Mayella Jr. They never mention that the Mayella daughter's married to Patrick Crucius's brother. They never mention that Patrick Crucius was totally clean when he surrendered twice, not once, but twice. He surrendered twice. They never mention that they didn't bag his hands. That means they didn't even think about any kind of shotgun or rifle residue, the gunpowder residue. They didn't even think about that. They didn't even think that they had to collect any of that because he was so sparkling clean too. And I don't mean, mentally, or, that he's innocent of this whole thing, but I'm saying that his clothes were clean, his shoes were clean, his pants were clean. You don't do what you just did and be clean, you know? And it's just, and then to say that he's the big R word, and he goes and surrenders twice to a Hispanic cop, right? A Hispanic cop. What? Oh, hi, Mr. Cop. Oh, you're Hispanic. Oh, don't come yet, Patrick. It's too early. Oh, okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Oh, I'm back now. Here. Okay, I won't even bag your hand. I don't even need to read your rights, because you're not even in the right mind, you know. And he's Hispanic. He's Hispanic. The cop's Hispanic. And, it's like the whole narrative. If he's so mean, if he has this manifesto, why don't you go and ask Michael Mayella Jr. about the manifesto? Why don't you ask Patrick Crusius's brother about the manifesto? Why don't you ask Alexis Mayella about the manifesto? Why don't you ask Jonathan Ambrose about the manifesto, or Danae Katzen about the manifesto, or even Dallas Hart about the manifesto? Patrick Crusius, well, now the gag order's not there. Maybe we can talk to him now, right? Maybe we can talk to him and say, tell us about your manifesto. What? I don't have any racism. I don't have any racism. I mean, it's we have so much audio, and i- you know, you think that the media would be calling to say, "What, you have Joe Spencer on audio?" Yes, and we've released some of it. You would think that they would be calling, but El Paso Matters is more interested in uh, publishing leaked, privileged information, violating a court-ordered gag order, than to get to the truth, right? Than to get to the truth. And so this is important to us and very personal to us, because they did this to Richard. They were more interested in giving a false narrative to the public to obstruct justice in our son's investigation, murder investigation, than to get to the truth, right? And this is what was so important. Geez, I didn't even go on here to see comments. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. And it's so late. Thank you for coming on so late. And, that is really this whole signal. Okay, so let's talk about the signal, because this is called signal. Um, uh, you know, they're more interested in damaging the administration and his cabinet, and more interested, this reporter from the Atlantic is more interested in politics and destroying the country than making America great again. Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the vitriol, the stupidity, the insanity that I heard today from some of these Congress people asking these questions to entrap, it is just, I think it's so criminal. We're supposed to be one country. And these people are absolutely, to me, it is red flags. that they are working for a foreign or a domestic enemy and not for protecting the Constitution or wanting to make America great, be it from Trump or not. Make America great again sounds pretty good. Let's make America great. And we have a lot of work to do. And these saboteurs and these really evil leaders like Sean Bernabe, and I haven't even started with Donna Martin, and I think Donna Martin is really really important in this whole thing because she was the provost marshal. She's IG, and she absolutely knows what happened to Richard, and she absolutely committed the worst type of crimes against us, covering up what happened to Richard, for the sake of protecting the generals, right? That's who they were protecting. So, and I believe the criminal traffickers that are tied to those on Fort Bliss that are just making a mint, making billions of dollars through the open border policies. But now, the border's closed and you can see them gnashing their teeth. They want to, do this criminal trafficking. And it was absolutely on Fort Bliss. And because they could exploit the American taxpayer through the U.S. military. And that's absolutely, we have so much evidence, a mountain of robust evidence to back us up about what was happening and what is happening that needs to be absolutely cleaned up. And I hope, please give me reports there from Fort Bliss and El Paso if the environment is changing, if the spirit in the air is changing. I know that there's been a lot of dust storms. I know that um, it's absolutely uh, crazy there with the judicial system. But please give me a report on it. It would be um, we would be so grateful to have that information. So that is really the Signal. The Signal is a company. It's an app. It's an app, and um, you know, um, nothing is totally secure. That's my thinking of the whole thing. Nothing is totally secure. And from what I heard and saw and read, it was nothing burger. Okay, you're going to talk about, oh yeah, we're going to strike. Good. Talk about you're going to strike. Good. But they didn't give any details. So, it is really a nothing burger. And uh, you know, those apps, there's nothing better than maybe carrier pigeons, right? I don't know. Even those can get intercepted, but I don't know. I think people have a way of even impersonating other people, stealing people's information to get onto devices, stealing the device. Look, they took Richard's phone away. They impersonated Richard. Okay. Um, Now, you just need your thumbprint or your fingerprint. I don't even do that because it gives me the heebie-jeebies if I think about that Richard that's how they got into Richard's um devices, right? Yeah, it just is so scary to or just horrible to think about that. And we know that he was absolutely targeted and absolutely taken advantage of, and we didn't get his phone back. And we know that his cards were being hacked, his cards were being used after his death. We know that his social security number. Um, yeah, and just it's all about the character of each and every one of us. And that's why fighting for Richard's character has been a key issue in all of this. Because we cannot tolerate the the treason, the betrayals. Um, we just can't. It's so destructive. And that's and the smear campaigns, right? The smear campaigns are the betrayal, um, and all this false narrative and everything. So that all depends on a moral education, right? A moral education, a moral family, so a strong family, a strong moral, that's why I homeschooled, because I just didn't feel like the school was giving our children a strong moral foundation. And, more than any kind of big job, more than any kind of other um, trade, the first and foremost that is so important to us is that our children have a very clear knowledge and foundation on what is right and what is wrong and how now to live your life. And that is the major reason why we began to homeschool, because we knew that if they had that, if they had integrity, if they had honor, if they had their good name, if they knew the difference between right and wrong. And remember, day before yesterday, because we're at 1 o'clock now, but it was the Annunciation. And God chose Mary not because she was wealthy, not because she was well educated, not because she was from some kind of elite family. He chose Mary because Mary knew the difference between right and wrong. And when the angel Gabriel came to her, she was absolutely humble and said, "Do unto me thy will," because she knew God's will was good and right. Not my will be done, but thy will, Lord, thy will be done. And she knew that. And because she could distinguish that, um, she became the mother of God. I mean, wow, what a blessing. So we have known that and felt very strongly that if we could keep our children close to us, meaning give them a firm foundation on what is right and wrong and a good character and integrity, that that is more precious than anything else, any other success. And today I was told by a neighbor, she said, your son's a hero. He's right where he's supposed to be. It was really, really moving. And as painful as that is for us, um, I totally understood. I totally understood what she said and how she meant it. And it's an honor to be Richard's mother. So he stood tall. And I think that the blessings that come from him will be enormous, because this is the biggest scandal in U.S. history. And what do I mean by that? Richard's heroic actions will absolutely touch so many parts of this world because this case is so big. And I'm talking into Mexico, into the Pentagon. Remember, the Pentagon is responsible for this cover up, for this scandal. This is the biggest scandal in U.S. Army history. And the Pentagon absolutely has to answer for what they've done. And that, you think, okay, you got Pete Hegseth in there. He's going to take care of it. I think, he's like shaking in his boots how he's going to take care of this scandal. Because it is complicated. But he has to do it. And I think he's up to the task. And the same thing with Kash Patel, and the same thing with Dan Bongino, and the same thing with Pam Bondi, and the same thing with President Trump. I think after watching them I've been watching President Trump for over a decade, right? He's unbelievable. He's just magnificent. I call him the Magnificent. What a magnificent human being. I you just are in awe. The arrows that he's been such a huge target. And I'm not saying he's not human. I'm not saying you agree with everything. I'm just saying what a magnificent human being he is. He's a billionaire. He could have gone and done other things. He's a billionaire. He is just, to me, and I don't even know if he's gonna handle this the way we want him to handle it. And it really, you know, I just have to say that that fight spirit, the protecting his family, protecting the United States, fighting for the truth, just staying calm as he has stayed, uh, and then this amazing victory, this amazing victory through it all, and all of the lawfare, all of the media false narratives that Russia, and oh my gosh, and so I think he's up to the task. That's what I'm saying for this huge U.S. Army scandal, and it's probably he knows how big it is. He knows. So thank you so much for sharing all of the posts. Thank you for coming on so late. Um, there's just no time to sleep. We just got to keep going. And we did work very hard to submit a criminal complaint against Bob Moore today for his actions that are absolutely cannot be tolerated. And, so, and anyone can file it. It doesn't have to be us. Anyone can file it, but we were very, very glad to do it. Very glad to file that complaint against him and his criminal actions. So thank you, everyone. watch out for the signal. Watch out for the signal. Watch out for the traps. Watch out for the traps. I think they've learned a little lesson here. Um, I'm sure they're aware, but the traps are out there because of people like Bob Moore that want to uh, have no scrutin, no scruples, no integrity, no honor, and will absolutely publish leaked, protected information to attempt to manipulate and interfere with plea deals. That's what we think. So thank you so much. God bless you, and thank you, Olga, for coming on. Thank you so much, and thank you, Anicia.